Hello everyone. As marketers, we all know that all our customers are not alike. Some customers buy more frequently with us, while some customers give us more revenue or might just be more recent. So today in this video, I'll be teaching you how to apply the RFM model for customer segmentation in Python. But you could apply the same concept on a Google Sheet. So let's begin. So the RFM in RFM model stands for recency, frequency, and monetary value. Recency is the number of years that has passed since the person has last transacted with you. This could also be in months or in weeks or even in days. Frequency is the number of times a particular person is buying the product from you. And monetary value is revenue, or you could also think of it like profit. So in this model, what we are planning to do is to have the recency, frequency, and monetary values for all the customers that we have in our database first, and then we'll be doing quartile distribution, that is dividing the entire customer base according to recency, frequency, and monetary value into 4 equal size buckets. Post that, what we'll be doing is we'll be assigning them scores basis their recency, frequency, and monetary values. So the scores that you give for recency, frequency, and monetary value are up to you basis the nuances of your business model. But as a general rule of thumb, what we follow is more the recency, meaning more years or more months or more days have passed by since the person last transacted with you. So more the recency, the lesser the score. With frequency and monetary value, as frequency and as monetary value or profit increases, you would want to rank them better, rank the customer higher, so you tend to give a higher score to them. Also, the nuances of whether you want to do a quartile distribution or do a custom distribution is again dependent on your business model. Feel free to play around that. So let's begin.
So today we'll be learning about RFM model to do customer segmentation, and so basically we will be utilizing Python to do the segmentation of customers and not utilizing any machine learning models to segment them. So it's plain vanilla mathematics. So first of all, we'll be importing pandas as PD and importing numpy as np, it's np, and then basically we will be creating, I have a dummy dataset in my desktop under users admin desktop online.csv. So if I were to show this looks like this, wherein this is the customer ID, this is the invoice number, this is the stock code, and the description, the quantity they bought, the date of invoice, and the unit purchase. This is not the customer ID, this is the transaction ID, this is the customer ID, and this is the country. So moving on, what we will be doing is we will be calculating revenue first. So for revenue calculation, we just have this. We will add a new table called revenue, and this will be quantity into the unit price. Alright, so now if we have a look, there is a revenue column which is the quantity into unit price. So next up we'll be calculating recency. So what recency stands for is the amount of time since a person has done their last transaction, and for that we will be using the invoice date and using a snapshot date. So I'll come to what snapshot means actually. So first of all, if you look at the data frame, the invoice date is like a string object right now. We need to convert that into a date first of all. So for that we will be writing invoice date Python to date time. Date and yeah. Next up we will be, so this is currently like a timestamp, so we'll be extracting the dates out of this and date dot dt dot date. Okay, so what snapshot date, what do I mean by snapshot date? So if we look at invoice date, the max we have here is December 9th, 2011, and now we will be creating a date of our own which we will be calling today's date, and that actually will be one day after this. So if you're doing this analysis, typically whenever you're doing this analysis it will be till yesterday's data, but this is not as of yesterday, so we'll be creating like a date for today. Don't worry about this. You, in most typical cases, you won't be having to do this. um, Sorry. What I'm basically doing is adding one more day to the last date here. So sorry, I need to import date time before I do this. Import date time. Okay. So now if I write today date, I get this 10th of December 2011. So if I were to look at this, this is how we get the data. I hope this is clear up till now. Next on, we will be making recency, which will be we will have to create like a new column for recency, which will be today's date, and the invoice date. Okay, now if I look at columns, we have recency as well. So notice, you see recency in days, we will have to fix that as well. And next up, so we will be creating another date frame from the same data frame. Basically what we'll be doing is we will be grouping the data frame on the basis of customer ID. Yeah. And when I do that, I would be aggregating invoice number, calling that as count. Sorry, I forgot this. Then I'll be doing revenue. I'll be calling that as sum, and last up we'll be doing recency, and I'll be calling that for max. Because if a person has, let's say, 20 days of recency in one invoice and 46 of recency in another, I would want to take the 20 days. So this I think should be minimum. Yeah, this should be minimum. This is sum because I would be summing things up, and invoice count, I'll be counting that. This should look good. If I call this out, now I have customer IDs, the invoice number, which is ideally the frequency. So we could be renaming this pd.data frame rename from columns for invoice number. Now I have frequency. Okay, so this is the final table that we'll be working with. Now with the RFM model, R stands for recency, F stands for frequency, and M stands for monetary value, which is same as revenue. You could also be taking profit in your case, just so that you want to understand the consumers better if you have that data. But in most cases, revenue would also work. So what we will be doing now is we could be now creating quartile distribution basis the revenue, frequency, and recency. So for that I would need to call df rfm, sorry, and I would be creating first of all recency quartile as a column, and we would be using qcut to distribute the data frame into quartiles. This is for recency, and taking 4 quartiles, and labels would be here. We need to be a little more careful as to what we put in as labels. So I'll be putting 4 3 2 1 here, and the reason I'm going in descending order is because I want to rank with least frequency, people with least frequency as 4, people with, I mean, higher than that recency as 3, and then 2 as, and then 1, because I would value people with least recency. So that means people who have just bought with you uh, to be more basically, and they should be weighed more rather, I would say. So if I do that, now FM, you have the recency quartiles. Simple, right? Now, next up, we have the same concept for so recency needs to be converted into days, as I told you. So next up, we could do that. Maybe that was the problem we identified. Recency. Sorry. DF recency as type 64. You could do this in T. This would ideally just remove the days from the recency. So if I call out this again, now you have it as a float, and let me, so these are no longer days but just uh, real numbers. So next up we'll be creating recency quartiles similar to what we have done before. This is revenue quartiles. Recency we've already made, so next up is revenue quartiles. So Q cut, again same 4 quartiles. Labels I'll be putting as now 1 2 3 4, and the reason I'm putting 1 2 3 4 and not 4 3 2 1 is less the revenue, I want to rank them less. I want to give them first and then 1 2 3 4 like it in this order. So now you see you have revenue quartiles as well in the same data frame. Next up we have, last but not the least, the frequency quartile. Frequency quartile. Just to keep the nomenclature same, is pd.qcut, the same concept, now frequency. Okay, turning that into 4 quartiles, and labels would be, yeah, you guessed this right, 1 2 3 and 4, because more the number of transactions I would want to label them more or higher, I would say. So there's a frequency key error that I see. Sorry, it's because of this. Okay. Now if I see this, I have all the quartiles for revenue, recency and frequency. Now the only thing that we need to do is add these three up to get a total score. But before that, if you see, these are strings or categories rather, and I need to make them integers to be able to add them up. So for that, recency quartiles, just copy paste as type integer. There's some issue, cannot assign to function call. Oh, sorry. Needs to be square bracket. Okay. So yeah, likewise we'll do it for all the quartiles. The revenue quartile and the frequency quartile. Done. So now if we check, these are all integers. So last up, we'll be adding these all the three quartiles scores to get the total score. Okay, so this should be pretty easy. Recency quartiles, and simply adding these three up. I'm just copy pasting things so that I don't have to write the entire code again. Okay, so now if we look at the RFM database, we have the total score. So now what you need to do is basically total score is the only thing that we would need. And if I were to show you how the total score distribution looks like, we could do it in a very simple fashion. So I would call the main data frame, group by total score, and find the mean. So you would now see clearly the values range from 3 to 12, meaning 3 is people who got 1 on frequency, 1 on revenue, and 1 on decency, and 12 is people who got custom IDs who got 444 across all of these, and these are the mean frequencies, the mean revenue, and the mean recency for these people. And you can see clearly that as this total score goes up, the frequency goes up, the revenue goes up, and the recency goes down. And this is how you could calculate the you could maybe assign different values to different users, or maybe group these. So people from 3 to 5, you could group them as low rankings, or people from 6 to 10 maybe could be medium ones, and 11 and 12 could be high potential users or customers. So if I were to count them, this is how the split looks like.
Having doubts? Don't worry, just comment them down and I'll be more than happy to help you out. Also, if you've liked what you've learned, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, share this video with your fellow marketeers, and also visit my website at ankitbaga.com for more such growth hacks. Thank you for watching.